Welcome to Audiobook 365 Stories.
When Troy's wife left the house at midnight, the first thing he did was cover the dead body so he could not see it. After that, he went upstairs and lay down on the bed with his clothes still on. He waited sadly for the morning. Bad things had happened to him in the last 24 hours. His day was very different from what he had planned. It is always hard to start a new way of living, not only for us, but also because the things around us seem to stop any good changes from happening. He had asked Bathsheba for money and got £20. He also added all the money he had himself, which was £7.10. With this money, £27.10, he quickly left the house that morning to meet Fanny Robin. When he got to Casterbridge, he left the horse and cart at a hotel. At 5 minutes before 10 o'clock, he went to the bridge at the far end of the town and sat on the edge. The clock struck 10, but Fanny did not come. In fact, at that same moment, Fanny was being dressed in her grave clothes by two women at the poorhouse. They were the only women who had ever helped her dress with care and respect. 15 minutes passed, then 30. As Troy waited, he suddenly remembered something. This was the second time Fanny had not come to an important meeting with him. He was angry and said this would be the last time. At 11 o'clock, after sitting and watching the stones on the bridge until he knew every little mark, and hearing the water sounds below until they made him feel worse, he stood up. He went back to the hotel, took his cart, and in a sad and careless mood, drove to the horse races in Budmouth. He arrived at the racecourse at 2 o'clock and stayed there or in the town until 9. But the picture of Fanny, as he had seen her on that sad Saturday evening, came back to his mind. He also remembered Bathsheba's angry words. He promised not to bet money, and he kept his promise. When he left the town at 9 o'clock that night, he had only spent a few shillings. He rode home slowly. Then, for the first time, he thought maybe Fanny had been sick and really could not come. He believed she did not make a mistake this time. He felt sorry that he didn't stay in Casterbridge to ask questions. When he got home, he quietly took off the horse's harness and went inside. And there, as we already know, he had a terrible surprise waiting for him. When the sky became light enough to see things clearly, Troy got up from the bed. He did not care where Bathsheba was, and he almost forgot about her. He walked downstairs and left the house through the back door. He walked to the churchyard. There, he looked around until he found a new empty grave. He remembered where it was and quickly went to Casterbridge. On the way, he stopped at the hill where he had last seen Fanny alive and thought for a while. When Troy arrived in the town, he walked down a small street and went through a gate. Above the gate was a sign that said, Harrison, Stone and Marble Mason. Inside the yard, there were many stones of different sizes and designs. Some had writing on them saying they were for people who had not died yet. Troy was very different now in how he looked, talked, and acted. Even he could feel he was not the same person. He did not act like someone who knew what he was doing when he came to buy a gravestone. He didn't think about the cost or try to save money. He just wanted something and tried to get it, like a child in a playroom. "I want a good gravestone," he said to the man who stood in a small office in the yard. "I want the best one you can give me for £27. That was all the money Troy had. "Does that price include everything?" the man asked. "Yes. Everything. The name on the stone, taking it to Weatherbury, and putting it in the ground. And I want it now, right away." "We can't make something new this week," the man said. "But if you want one we already have here, we can make it ready quickly." "All right," said Troy quickly. "Show me what you've got." "This one is the best I have," said the stonecutter, walking into a shed. "Here is a marble headstone with nice shapes on it. Below, there are pictures carved into the stone. Here is the footstone, made the same way. And here is the border to go around the grave. Just the polishing of these stones cost me £11. These stones are the best kind, and I promise they won't break in rain or cold weather for 100 years. "How much for all of it?" asked Troy. "I can add the name and take it to Weatherbury for the price you said," the man replied. "Finish it today, and I will pay now," Troy said. The man agreed, and he was surprised that Troy did not wear any black clothes for mourning. Troy wrote down the words that would be carved on the stone, paid the money, and left. In the afternoon, Troy came back. He saw that the name on the stone was almost finished. He waited in the yard until the stone was packed and put on a cart. He watched the cart leave for Weatherbury and gave the two men instructions to ask the gravekeeper for the grave of the person named on the stone. It was already dark when Troy left Casterbridge. He carried a heavy basket on his arm. He walked sadly along the road and sometimes stopped at bridges and gates to rest and put the basket down. Halfway home, he met the men and the cart that had taken the gravestone. It was dark, but he asked them if the job was done. They said yes, so he continued walking. Troy went into Weatherbury churchyard at about 10 o'clock. He walked straight to the corner where he had marked the empty grave earlier that morning. It was on the north side of the church tower. People walking by on the road could not easily see this place. Before, the area had been full of old stones and wild bushes. But now it was cleaned up and ready for new graves, because the rest of the ground was already full. The gravestone was now standing there, just like the men had said. It was bright white and neat, with a headstone and footstone, and a border of marble connecting them. In the middle was soft soil for planting flowers. Troy put his basket down next to the grave and went away for a few minutes. When he came back, he had a spade and a lantern. He turned on the lantern and pointed its light at the grave to read the writing on the stone. Then he hung the lantern on the lowest branch of a yew tree. He took flower roots out of his basket. There were many kinds. There were snowdrops, hyacinths, crocuses, violets, and double daisies for early spring. There were also carnations, pinks, picotees, lilies of the valley, forget-me-nots, summer's farewell, meadow saffron, and others for later seasons. Troy laid the flowers on the grass and began to plant them. His face showed no feeling. He put the snowdrops in a line outside the stone border. The other flowers he planted inside the grave area. The crocuses and hyacinths were placed in rows. Some summer flowers were planted where her head and feet would be. The lilies and forget-me-nots were planted over her heart. The rest of the flowers were put in the spaces between. Troy was very tired and sad. He did not feel that these romantic actions were strange or silly. He was acting this way because he felt sorry for not caring enough before. He did not see that planting flowers in the dark might look foolish to others. His character came from both English and French sides. At times like this, he acted like an Englishman who did not change easily, and like a Frenchman who did not notice when emotions became too much. It was a cloudy, wet, and very dark night. The light from Troy's lantern shone into the two old yew trees, making strange shapes, almost reaching up to the dark clouds above. A large raindrop fell on his hand. Soon, another drop fell inside the lantern, and the candle went out. Troy felt very tired. It was almost midnight, and the rain was starting to fall harder. He decided to finish the planting in the morning. He felt his way along the wall and over the graves in the dark until he reached the south side of the church. There, he entered the church porch and lay down on a bench. He fell asleep.